What's up, brother and sister? It's your brother G World 7_D, and I'm showing you the book Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 2 by David McRitchie, written back in 1884, 1885. All right, what you see here is from a crest from the Brocas family. This is from Britain. This is not African slave or no African princess. This is an Aboriginal black European. Notice the crown she wears on her head. This is not no slave. All right, and make this clear. This is not no damn slave, and this is not African. This is a black European. I'm showing you this because some of these goofy Pan-Africans, and I expect white folks to think the way they do, but these goofy Pan-Africans want to just tell you this is an African. All right, but I'm going to go on. I'm going to read from this book, but I'm going to hit some definitions real quick that I want you to pick up on. All right? Get my Webster New World Dictionary for Student Handbook. I'll go to page 190 in there. Let me see if I can focus. Right here, it has, let me see, a focus on those sort of words. It's kind of tough here. The focus of the word Dane is Dane. Look at the word Dane. A native or inhabitant of Denmark. A native or inhabitant of Denmark. Okay, go further down. Danish of Denmark. The Danes. Or their language. The language of the Danes. On page 835. Okay, 835. Get it focused. Viking. Any other Scandinavian pirates who ravaged the coast of Europe from the 8th to the 10th centuries. All right? That's Viking. Now we're going to go. We're going to go to page 665. And 665. Let's see if we get focus here. Focus. Focus. If I can't, here it is. Scandinavia. Region in North Europe include Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and sometimes Iceland. All right? Region in Northern Europe include Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, and sometimes Iceland. That's Scandinavia. All right? So we know the Vikings were pirates, and we know the Vikings are supposedly Scandinavian, right? All right, so I'm going to go back to the book Ancient and Modern Britons. All right. Now, as I read this, man, you had that idiot from that old YouTube page at Real Team History or Home Team History, whatever that nigga name is, and he made the statement saying that black people, why are black people concerned about who was black in Europe? Were they black people in ancient Europe? Of course they were. That we should just worry about African history. That's the typical Negro, Sambo, Coon response of your traditional Negro scholarship, who was teaching you, miseducating you, saying that you were just African, not understand that we're indigenous to this damn planet, particularly us. We are indigenous Aboriginal blacks of this land, but we also have some lineage mixed in with the black Europeans who came here. All right, I'm going to go to 392. All right, let me get another copy of this book. This one was torn up. I had to get a second copy of this book of Ancient Modern Britons. All right, here we go. I'm going to show this one right here. Instead, let me get a focus. Instead of using gypsy in a vague fashion, it is evidently much better to employ the word Tory, accepting it in its earliest sense of sonar and ultra-conservative, from which second meaning has, of course, come the nickname applies to a more conservative division of modern politicians. that certain clans are or were distinctly Moorish or Ethiopian in complexion, and probably Egyptian by origin, is unmistakable. And these dark-skinned clans are said by modern writer to be divisible into two sections of entirely different original stock. The same writer applies one name, that of the Romani, to this compound people, though it is obvious that the name can only properly belong to one of these types. But whenever their title to this name, these dark-skinned people are the inheritors of Moorish blood. And it may be that both stocks have an ancestral right to the name Egyptian. These, then, are gypsies proper, and it is likely that they represent, if only in a partial degree, two primitive Egyptian types. Now, I'm going to go on further. That's talking about some gypsies. But I'm going to go on further. I'm going to page 404. All right? And here we go here. And I'm going to read most of this, straight up read most of this, and I'm going to flash on here because I want you to notice some things, okay? Whatever may have been the various race combinations in Britain at and after the Norman conquest, the arrival of the Black Danes, Vikings, seems to mark the first important inroad of Asiatics. If we look backward from the 19th century, these people are remembered in Gaelic records as Black Lochlanders, Black Scandinavians. Okay, let me show you that. Let me get a focus. Okay, let me see. Let me get a focus. And you can see it. Dub Galas, all right? Dub Gauls, or Dub Ninta, black foreigners or people, and also as Black Danars, all right? Another account speaks of them as Denai or Simbrai, and they are called Latrones, pirates or robbers in the Gaelic tongue. They are remembered as Oatsmen or Eastmen. They make their first appearance in the British Isles in the year 793 in an attack upon the islands of Lindisfarne, and they are said to have overrun the Hebrides in the same year, or the Hebrides in the same year. Simeon of Durham tells us that in 875, the host of the Danes who had ravaged the east coast of Britain divided itself into two bands, one of which under Halfdan, marching into the region of the Northumbrians, laid its waste, and wintering near the river Tyne, brought the whole country, Northumbria, presumably, under their dominion, and destroyed the Picts and the people of, Strathclyde, if I pronounced it correct, Strathclyde. One division of them was defeated by Luncarthy, Perthshire, in the year 970. In 986 through 7, it is recorded that the God district, the son of Harold, with the black nations, laid waste of Nineveh, St. David's and Wales. Showed you that. Let me show you that. This is not me just making stuff up. This is an ancient modern Britain written back in 1884. And get it clear, in 1885. And it said what it said, the black nations. Hold up. You see? 986, 7 recorded. Okay? And did so much hurt in the country besides, that to be rid of them, Meredith was fain to agree with them, and to give them a penny for every man within his land, which was called The tribute of the Blackie Army, a like tribute in other districts, being known as the Dane Gelt, the proper names for such a tax being the Gaelic Dubh Chris and the English black male. About the same period, the Supreme King of Ireland, Brian Bromahi, incessantly opposed himself to their inroads, and it is stated that he defeated the Danes in upwards of 20 pitched battles, restricting their influence to the fourth cities of Dublin, Wexford, Waterford, and Limerick alone, and that he gained a signal victory over them at Clontarf in 1014, in which battle he himself was killed. In 1014, also, the Danes are said to have made a treaty with Malcolm of Scotland, and even to have nominally retired his territories. But the dates of the various Danish onslaughts are well known to historians, and also the territories over which they ruled. Even after the victories of Alfred, they retained a large slice of the larger island. The whole eastern country, from the Tweed to the Thames, where it washed a part of Essex, being under their dominion, and this over and above their other British possessions. The cruelty of the Danes is painted in the strongest colors by our most ancient historians, who lived near this time. The cruel Guthrum, says one of these historians, arrived in England AD 878 at the head of an army of pagan Danes, as cruel as himself, who, like inhuman savages, destroyed all before them with fire and sword, involving cities, towns, and villages with their inhabitants, in devouring flame, and cutting those in pieces with their battle axes who attempted to escape from their burning houses. All the towns, though, which they passed exhibited the most deplorable scenes of misery and desolation. Old men lying with their throats cut, the streets covered with the bodies of young men and children, without heads and arms, and of the matrons and virgins, who had first been publicly dishonored and then put to death. It is said to have been the common practice among these barbarous pagans to tear the infants of the English from the breast of their mothers, toss them up into the air, catch them on the point of their spears as they were falling down. The horrid operation of scalping, particularly to the North American savages, was occasionally performed by these nations on their enemies. Earl Godwin says an ancient historian intercepted Prince Alfred, the brother of Edward of Confessor, at Guildford in his way to London, seized his person and defeated his guards, some of which he imprisoned. Some he sold for slaves, some he blinded by putting out their eyes, some he maimed by cutting off their hands and feet, some he tortured by cutting off the skin of their heads, and by various torments put about 600 men to death. Of their ravage and cruelties, history has many records, and monasteries and churches shared the fate of towns and villages. It is stated by one writer that the abbess of the Cardinghamy actually cut off her nose and upper lip in order to render herself repellent to the black heathens, victors, who had no respect for any attribute except superior strength. They were so notoriously treacherous that they became known to the English as truce breakers. Not the least important feature in the above description are those which link the Black Danes with Tartarian races. All right, I'm going to show you this now. Okay, this is not me saying this. This is from David McRitchie. Okay, let me get a clear picture. Here it is. Not at least the important features of the above description are those which link the Black Danes with Tartarian races. All right, their manner of levying a money tax upon the vanquished was precisely that of the Black Huns in Italy many centuries before. It is unnecessary to emphasize the fact that they scalped their enemies like any modern red Aboriginal Indians. The Tartar features of these Black Danes, are visible again and again. The word Tartar being here used much as it was done when as black as Tartars was proverbial expression. All right. For example, when the Danish Tartars of the year 1237, headed by Can Batu or Batus, after ravaging great part of Poland and Sicilia, broke suddenly into Russia, where they committed the greatest cruelties. Most of the Russian princes, this account continues, were made prisoners and racked to death, and, in short, none found mercy but such as acknowledged themselves the subjects of the Tartars. The imperialist conqueror imposed upon the Russians everything that is most mortifying in slavery, insisting that they should have no other princes than such as he approved of, that they should pay him yearly a tribute, to be brought by the sovereigns themselves on foot, who were to present it humbly to the Tartarian ambassador on horseback. They were also to prostrate themselves before the haughty Tartar, to offer him milk to drink, and if he drops it, it fell down, to lick them up. These are ways of the 13th century hordes of Tartars emerging from the Danish or the Cimbric Peninsula. Let them be compared with the manners of the Black Danes of the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th century, as exhibited towards the people of the British Island. Okay, I'll show you that again. Okay, here it is what it says. Let me get a clear picture. Okay, we can get clear. Hold up. Okay, you can see, let them be compared with the manners of the Black Danes of the 8th, 9th, and 10th century, as exhibited towards the people of the British Islands. The marital spirit of the Danes was attended with the most ferocious insolence. Now, that when an Englishman met a Dane on a bridge or in a narrow path where he could not avoid him, he was obliged to stand still, barefooted, and in a bowing posture as soon as the Dane appeared, and to remain in the posture till he was out of sight. If an Englishman presumed to drink in the presence of a Dane, nothing but instant death could expiate the offense. Truly, a race of black oppressors, black knights, holding the people in vassalage and using them with great severity. Okay, what I just read. Let me get it clear. Alright, hold up. What I just read now. Okay. That these Tartars of the Baltic, who insolent, bearing towards the conquered Russians, had just been pictured, were descendants from those Black Danes who York had been partly thrown off by the British islanders some centuries before can hardly be doubted. Whether they were connected with the Saracens, blacks, against whom the Frankish king Charles Martel fought during the 8th century, many may be questioned, but it seems likely they were of the same stock as those pagan Saxons, that the same king and his grandson, Charlemagne, were continually engaged. Now, he was a brother too, all of them were. Charlemagne were continually engaged in combating, and that had it not been for the victories of Charlemagne, the Black Danes might not have been so persistently the invaders of British Islands. Okay. Let me go. Let me get it in the picture. Let it focus. And let me get it. And here it comes. And if you can see it, I'm trying to get it to focus. There it is. And that, you can see it. I don't know if it's ever going to get real clear. This might be the best part right here, the best way I can get it, but I'm trying to focus right here. You can see it's just in here, and you see Charlemagne. Here it is. And that it had not been for the victories of Charlemagne, the Black Danes might not have been so persistently the invaders of the British Islands. Alright, so when in the 14th century, the Teutonic Order, the Tudescu, or the Frankish Order, overcame the pagans of Prussia and cleared large districts of their presence. It is probable that these pagans of Prussia were the same as those fiends whom Sir Walter Scott tells us are pictured on a 15th century map, dressed in kaftan and armed with scimitars, and contesting the possession of that portion of Europe with the Frankish nations. And it is equally probable that the band of 300 wanderers, black at Tartars, and calling themselves Sikana, Azagana, who arrived in Lüneburg in 1417, formed a small division of these Finnish warriors. Okay, this is not me saying this. Alright, this is not me saying this. Let me see if I can focus and you can see this. Alright, I want you to see some of this stuff. Alright? This is not me saying this. Is not me making this up. Alright? Let me just get it so you can get it clear. You were just clear a few seconds ago. Alright? I'm going to continue to read. In short, when it is stated that the Scandinavian and Low German word Tare identifies gypsies with the Mongolian hordes, the terror of Europe in the 13th century, two words are employed, which, though very comprehensive, are still precise enough to denote the ethnological and political positions of these races. These words are Tartar and Gypsy, and these terms seem to be applicable with equal finesse or fitness to the sections known as the Kimbri or Black Danes. Alright? Wow. Ooh, well, it's something that we really need to think about, or really need to continue to study our history. And this last part right here, he says right here, get it? Oh, okay, that's it. If I can get it clear. The Tartarian origin of the Black Danes is nowhere more clearly seen than in the fact that the Baltic seaboards have yielded up immense numbers of Eastern coins struck in Asiatic mints at various dates during the Black Danish supremacy. This is not me saying this. This is not me saying this now. This is an ancient and modern Britons. This is an old-ass book. This is a first-hand source book. This is a book that I think every brother and sister should check out. Alright? This is volume 2. And this is a black queen from Britain. This is not an African. This is not an African slave. Notice the crown that she's wearing. Now, you had that Negro from that particular website saying that we should not worry about black people in Europe. Why are we so concerned about that? The reason we as Americans are so concerned about that, because that's a part of our history. They mixed in with the Aboriginal blacks here. Large numbers of them came in, mixed in with the Aboriginal blacks here. This is why it's so important that we need to study our history. We should not listen to, like I say always, clowns like Umar Johnson, clowns like Saras Husseini, clowns like the Amara Squad, Dr. Ma'at, Sarnetta, this Juicy chick, Josie, whatever her name is, Home Team History, the other idiot from Nothing. They are not true historians because they have not digged in our true history. And they want to basically run away from the truth. They want to put everything as being just African. When they see a black person, that's just African. Now understand that so-called black people, melanated people, are indigenous to this planet. This is our planet. This is our land. This is our home. But particularly here in America, all right, I'm going to try to get some more other good information that I have that is going to even connect Europe more to the Americas, ancient America. I'm going to get that information. I'm not going to really talk about that as much or in depth on this one, but I just wanted to break that down to you. That the fact is, it's very important to understand that you need to understand that so-called black people were indigenous to the Americas, as it were, to so-called Africa and Europe. These people who built those castles in Europe were so-called black people. They were not white. They were so-called black people. And your last names that you had, these English last names, are not white European. They originated from the black nobility of Europe. They originated from the black people who ruled Europe, not white folks. Most of them did not even have, they didn't have last names, and hell, a lot of them didn't have first names. So, this is something that you need to understand. This is book 2, all right, from Ancient and Modern Britons. That is not an African. That is an Aboriginal black European. You also see that in Nature Knows Those Color Line. I showed you that book before, where some goofball tried to say that all the people wearing headbands are slaves. I was on the track the other day, brothers wearing a headband. I guess that was what you can call remote intuition, or sort of like a remote transmission that our people was wearing something 1,000 years ago and just still clicking to our people's head. Because I remember recently I heard Tariq Nasheed said that most of our history of today comes from slavery. That's not true. Most of our history, a lot of stuff that came from slavery, a lot of those brothers and sisters were just carrying on tradition that was done by the Aboriginal blacks here already in America, as well as black Europeans that was carrying it from Europe. And a lot of some stuff that had been like lost directly to their tribe or nation, but they still carried on that knowledge of dance, agriculture, different forms of farming, food they were eating. It did not necessarily originate in slavery. It was basically a carry-on from the Aboriginal blacks here, like I say, and the black European. So we just didn't create something slavery. It came from our ancestry further back that was already here. And then many of us, when the black European and the black Aboriginal American, a lot of them just mixed with one another here in America. So we maintain our dark skin. We did not lose our black skin. Some Moorish blacks did procreate with white folks, end up bleaching themselves out. Some of them black Europeans did do that. So it is very important for us to study our full history, to know our full history, to know our true history. I just broke down to you that the so-called, the Danes, the black Danes that they're talking about in Ancient Modern Britons are the black Vikings. Peace and love, brothers and sisters.